Yeah, just a little bit of a shout out to CDP. So I was setting this up, and I couldn't get the right number of people to be set up on it. So CDP, Cambridge Design Partnership, they very kindly wrote to me and said, look, if we can sort you out sort of the Zoom with the bigger seats and stuff like that, would you be happy to do that? I said, yeah, that'd be great. And they are going to help me to do some more education events in the future. Today's going to be more of a commercial one that I'm going to do. Whereas in the future, I'll also do some ones about more about the front end of the pipe, designing the robots and what you should be looking for and what you should be doing on that side of it. But for today, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, it's going to be more of a commercial thing today. And I'll just leave up there the topics like that. I'm trying to end that poll for now. So I'll end the poll. Share the results. You'll be able to see the results. The results should pop up somewhere as well on the screen, I hope. Hope your results will pop up on the screen. And basically, good to excellent is the majority of people in the poll. So good. I'll know where to pitch this, but we have got some people who've got a low level. So message me in private if you think that I'm talking too many acronyms or anything. Okay. Right. Okay, I want to dive into this today. So this is really about the topics that we're going to cover today. I'm going to talk about the current state of the market and where commercialization is at of surgical robotics. And if I go too fast as well, I've got a terrible Liverpool accent. So yeah, if I go too fast as well, let me know. I want to really understand, this will be the first hour, and then I've got about 100 questions that have been compacted into different topics, which I'll take you through. Which will answer also a lot of stuff as well. But in the first hour, I wanted to cover these topics, which were the most requested things that we got out of the questions. So I want to make sure that I get all those done. Now, hang on, I've got some questions coming in here. Okay. Excellent. Good. Right. So the current state of the market, it's actually a very interesting time for surgical robotics because there's 36 players on the market when I talk about laparoscopic style surgical robots. So those that would sort of compete with Intuitive, and I won't list them all out now, but there's a lot of your boom robots and a lot of Intuitive clones. You've got some modular robots like the CMR Surgical Versus. You've got the Medtronic. You've got the SSI. You've got Renovo coming down the line. Then you've got some bed-mounted ones. There's an Iranian robot called Cynomedical. You've got J&J's bed-mounted coming. Then you've got several others that are various ones, one out of Canada, Revolve, and some others. And then you've got some semi sort of robotic systems like Moon Surgical, which is more of a laparoscopic assistive. And then you've got things that sit in the middle like Distal Motion's Dexter, which they're fully capable robots, but it's aimed in a slightly different segment. So you can do this, and I know that they hate the word hybrid. What I mean by that is that you can be fully scrubbed in and use the robot and do some laparoscopic bit, and then you can just very easily sit down at the console, scrubbed, and dock the robot in and do the robotic part. And I've still not decided what I'm going to call that yet, but a lot of people don't like hybrid. So the market is quite crowded. And then you've got things like MMI, and you've got Microshore, which are doing the open robotics, which we're not going to talk too much about today. And then you've got the whole endoluminal, which I will touch on today because I had a lot of questions on endoluminal robotics. So hopefully I'll be able to look at some of that today as well. So the market is quite crowded. The market is very busy, but there's still a massive dominance by Intuitive in the market. So if you think about the installed base that's out there, it's about 10,000 systems just by Intuitive. And if you roll everybody else up that's out there, they don't even get to 1,000 systems. There's probably some of the leaders out there are CMR Surgical's got maybe 160 plus out there. You've got SSI that's over 100 in India now. Medtronic don't release their figures, but I would guess that'd be somewhere around 100 or 100 plus. So if you sort of add everybody else up together with a lot of the Chinese robots as well, which is like Microport and Kangduo and Edge and some of the others that are out there, Omnibot, then what you'll find is you'll probably find 500 to 1,000 robots are out there in total. So it's still 90% installed base market share by Intuitive. But then if you go to procedures where Intuitive is just smashing it out of the park, if you think, just to let everyone know in case you didn't hear what I did on one of my videos recently, just with the Da Vinci 5 launch, Intuitive in 1 quarter did more procedures than everybody else has ever done together as all the other companies together in their entire number of years on the market. So that gives you the understanding of where the market is from a point of scale. And I don't mean that to scare people. I just want it to be the reality of where we sit today. And therefore, if you are going to be marketing robots, and even if you're Intuitive, and I'm sure we've got a couple of Intuitive people on the line as well, there's just a reality in the market that we have to face. And all these thoughts where people will come in and take 20% market share, 30% market share, that's just not a reality. Just not a reality. So what we also need to understand is that the market out there has changed a lot. Oh, let me just get rid of that poll question. Okay. The market out there has changed a lot since the days that I started this. So it used to be a very capital intensive, you could sell capital, and then you would also then sell procedures on top of that with your consumables, your disposables, semi-reusables. It's really now quite dramatically moving towards, the market is moving towards a sort of lease model, or pay per click as it's sometimes called, or pay per case, or long-term rentals that then become the owned capital. Still some capital being sold out there, about 20-30% is capital being sold out there. But if you look at the current state of the market today, from a commercialization point of view, if you're out there commercializing robots, you should be expecting your customers and the market to be asking for some kind of capital light deal where you put the capital in as part of the deal, and then you either pay for it during the cases, or there's a quarterly or monthly rental. There's different flavors of this, and we can talk about this in more details in a bit, because I've got a question about that. So it's really tough out there at the minute if you're a startup company, because this is going to hit your P&L quite hard, because you're going to have to own a lot of that capital that's out there. So that's just a really tough thing for any of the companies out there. You're going to find out there, a lot of people sort of have this dream when they come to the market. We're going to go and find a place where Intuitive's not going. Okay. And I guarantee you that Intuitive goes everywhere. If there's a chance that there's a robot to be sold, they will have been there, or they will be there. And if you go and sniff there and they're not there, they will soon be there. And I've got personal experience of that from when I was selling Versius. So I don't think that you're going to find places out there where there's not Intuitive, but what I think you will be able to find in the marketplaces is places where your solution or a different solution might be better than Intuitive's solution. Doesn't mean the robot's better, doesn't mean that the service is better. What I mean is that your offering can be what is better as a solution than the Intuitive Da Vinci, as an example. You then get in the market split up as well. There's a growing trend towards the single port. So SP is actually gaining some traction, and there's several SPs out there, single ports out there. So you've got your multi-ports, and for those people at the beginning who said they've got low knowledge of robotics, you've got some robots that have multiple arms and go through multiple trocars or ports in the abdomen. And there's another class of robots which will go through one larger central port in the middle, and all the instruments go through that one port and then fan out like small octopus arms. The SP is growing, and if you look at places like Korea, South Korea, then you're definitely seeing a larger uptake of SP. I'm also seeing a lot larger uptake of SP, the single port, in urology to start with. And I think that might just be because the urologists had such a long start with the multi-port, that something fascinating and interesting coming in the single port is another reason for them to be on the podium or to do something different. But it's actually got a very good use case for it. And I've done a whole video on this as well, where you can go and look at the use of the SP in retroperitoneal cases for the kidney, for example, which is a really nice use of it, and you can understand that. So the market is now segmenting. And I think that's an important thing to understand for anybody selling the robot out there. It's segmenting in several ways. So the first is, is it multi-port? Is it single port? And in the multi-port, are we talking about boom robots, multiple cart robots where the carts have an arm on them? Is it bed style robots? Is it more of a intuitive style boom robot, or is it more like a Moon Surgical, more of a laparoscopic robot? So you're seeing this spectrum that's starting to grow out. And in some locations, some of those systems are going to be slightly better to be used. So let me give an example. This will be a little bit of an American example, but I'll give it a little bit for the rest of the world as well. So there's a class of hospital in the US which is known as ASC, which is an ambulatory surgery center, which is a fairly small, sort of more like office-based. And in Germany, you have office-based surgery as well, and you'll have small private clinics around different places around the world. In Italy, we have several small private clinics. And they usually are much more price sensitive. They usually have less size. They usually run on efficiency, so turnover is really important. And quite often they get different reimbursements by insurers or by governments because just the structure that they're in. So we're starting to see that the Da Vinci boom robots have never been classically, they've never classically been that well taken up in these smaller settings. Part of that is because of the size, but part of it's to do with the cost and the reimbursement. That's all starting to change a bit, and we will talk a bit about that today. But generally, the market is now got this segmentation by robot types, by the kind of acuity of procedures where a robot might be used, by the reimbursement, by the location. So is it over in a main hospital block, in a main teaching hospital? Is it a general hospital out in the woods? Is it a lower acuity hospital somewhere else? Is it an operating outpatient department within a hospital? Or is it more of a clinic setting, which is like an ASC or a private clinic somewhere like in Germany? And as you start to segment them out, what I'd say to everybody is understand where your offering resonates and why. And this is what I want to get into the next line, which is about having a unique selling proposition. Going out there and saying we're a robot is not enough nowadays. That kind of bubble has gone a long time ago. So you've got to be able to go out there and you've got to be able to say, what do we offer? And even if you're intuitive, you still have to be able to, you have to be able to say very concisely and easily, what is our unique selling proposition? And I say that your entire company has to understand this from day one, because you have to get round of, it's a big thing, which is about why. Why would I buy your robot? There's a Da Vinci out there and it's really good and it's got over 98.7% uptime. It's got every instrument that I need. It's got every brilliant digital ecosystem that I need. Why would I take your robot? And the immediate thing that everybody says, and this is a little bit of a meme, is, oh, because it's too expensive. The Da Vinci is too expensive. That's the immediate thing that everybody says. And I think that's a bit bullshit myself. I think that's, every robot's expensive and you're never going to have a cheap robot, which I'll dig into a little bit, which is the cost of the actual capital is one piece of it. It's about a third of the cost. But if you look at a system owned over 7 years, you're going to 250 cases a year. That's about a $3.5 to $4.5 million spend. I put it in dollars just to keep it all simple throughout the whole of the talk. So if you've got a $4.5 million spend and $1 million of that is the robot, that's less than 25%. So that's not really the biggest problem. I think that a lot of the cost as well is because the companies, it's very expensive to do a robot. And this is where I think so many companies out there are missing. So take furious notes on this if you're one of the companies. The cost of actually running a robotics company is furiously high from the R&D point of view, but also for the point of view of Selling the robot, it's intensive, up to 18 months capital sell. Implementing, training, supporting the digital ecosystem, ensuring that your instruments are all getting validated more and more to get more and more lives. There's just a vast amount of expense that goes into a surgical robotics company. And if you're in a low cost country doing that as your first market, that doesn't spread for the rest of the world. So if you're a Chinese robot, for example, and I've talked with some of the Chinese companies about this, if you've got cheap labor that's being able, you'll be able to get 3 or 4 staff in the operating room for a fairly cheap price. Well, when you go to the US, you don't suddenly keep those cheap. Not just because you're a Chinese robot doesn't mean that the staff that you employ in the US are going to be cheap, and they're the majority of the cost for you as a company. And the capital is just one piece of it, maybe 500,000 max of cost for you over the life of the robotics program as a company. And the rest of it, that other couple of million, is going to be in people. And that doesn't change depending on which company you are. If you're company A or company B and you've got a sales rep commercial person in Florida, they're going to cost you about the same. Just because you're a Chinese robot doesn't mean you automatically get them at a lower price. In fact, it can be the opposite. And what I found is that being able to attract people to come to you rather than go to an intuitive, for example, you often have to pay a premium because you're a risk. So there's a lot of premium in there. So this whole thing about your unique selling proposition, in my mind, cannot be, we are a cheaper alternative. Now, there's ways that you can make the robotics cheaper, but it's not through having a cheaper robot or you being a cheaper company. I think we have to get that out of our heads. I still see that mistake being made every minute.
Hey everyone, just one quick second to ask a big favor in the middle of this. It really helps me if you hit like, hopefully you like it, but subscribe and turn notifications on. And the reason for that is that a lot of these videos are going to come out in multiple parts. And rather than you trying to work out when it's done or hope that you see the announcement that it comes out, if you put on the subscribe and the little notify bell, when I put up the new content, it will automatically come to your YouTube and it'll give you a little notification. So if you can just subscribe, like, and again, comments, very, very welcome. If there's other things you want me to do these sessions on, put them in the comments. That will help my channel immensely. And yeah, it will keep these things coming. So yeah, help me out.
So instead, what you've got to do is you've got to look at your offering and you've got to decide what is unique about our system. And that gets pretty tough if you're a Da Vinci clone. What's different about you? Is your vision system different? Is the way that you do pivot points different? Are your instruments different? Is it that you do telesurgery, whereas they're not so much doing telesurgery today? Is that the differentiator? If you're a modular-based system, a cart-based system, definitely your cart-based system is a very big differentiator from the boom, but it's not differentiated from the other cart-based systems. And there are 4 or 5, I think 6 now, cart-based systems out there. So what's your unique selling proposition? So I'll tell you that when I was at CMR Surgical and with Versius, they've got the V-wrist, which is the wrist on the end of the arm that acts like a human wrist. That means that you don't need to do overreach with the sort of the classic Da Vinci style arms. That made a huge difference in terms of just how much the arms had to move outside to get the big movements inside. So there was a unique selling proposition. So if you're sat there today with a Medtronic Hugo or you're sat there with an SSI, you've got to sit there and try and work out, okay, what's my unique selling proposition in the world of robots? And then what's my unique selling proposition within the actual subcategory that I sit in? And if I asked you that now, every one of you on the line here, either for yourselves or if you're not in a robotics company, you're looking at them, how well would you be able to tell me the unique selling proposition of those systems that are out there? How unique are they? And what is the key thing that you're selling for? And why does that make a difference? And therefore, why as a hospital administration or as a surgeon or as a nursing user group, why would I care? And why would I want to buy your product and not go and buy a Da Vinci? And if you can't answer that, then the first thing that you have to do as a company or as a group or as a salesperson or as a marketing person is write that shit down and make sure that you have got a really good, solid, unique selling proposition that cannot just be about, oh, we're cheaper, because that's just garbage. You win on price, you lose on price. And remember, Intuitive's got 8 billion in the war chest. They could go and place 5,000 systems tomorrow completely free of charge, which is what they sort of do in a way, which is they're leasing deals, the capital's placed. So your whole we've got a cheaper robot just went out the window because the biggest, baddest company in the world that does this can always undercut you. So don't rely on that. That's my number one advice that I would say to people. Stop selling on price. Um, you've then got to really try and understand if it's not on price, then what is it? What's our big thing? So again, if I was one of the Chinese robots, I'd be absolutely banging the drum on. So if I was Microport, whatever, I'd be really pushing hard on their amazing telesurgery and just the way that they've got that absolutely nailed. That is pretty amazing. SSI, Sudhir and the team out there. I don't know if anyone's on from there, but a big hi to you guys if you're out there. Yeah, the cardiac angle that they've got is pretty amazing. They're doing telerobotic cardiac surgery, which is just like amazing. And, that's something that's really powerful for them. Plus, they can do 5 arms. There's an interesting thing. You've got some of the other systems that are out there. If you're Renovo, it's really about the small and the compact size of their arms compared to a lot of the other arms. If you're Medtronic, you're Medtronic, right? So if you're Medtronic, you've got the whole laparoscopic and open, and you've got the whole touch surgery side of it as well. So I think that there's going to be lots of really great ways that you can create a unique selling proposition. And it has to stand alone, it has to stand up, and it has to be meaningful for either the administration or for the surgeons. And I think we need to really, really start there. That it's just get yourselves your unique selling proposition. And again, if you're sat there now listening to this thinking, what is ours? Okay, that's a really bad place to be in. If you're sitting there as either a surgeon or administrator, you should be able to say, what makes this robot different than that robot? They're not just all the same. And that's going to be important as well from the buying side, understanding the selling proposition of each. And does that match your business model as a buyer or as a hospital or as a surgeon? Is that aligned with what you want? And this is how the market's going to segment out that way. And you don't need a Da Vinci for every single operation in every single location for every single type of surgeon or every single type of procedure. You just don't. But if you can't match up your reason why you exist as a company or as a robot, and you can't match that up with some of those things, then I think it's going to be really hard for you to not just get dragged into this specifics on tenders, which I'll talk about, and the contracting. So let's talk about the unique selling proposition there. Okay. I'm going to jump down and then jump back up. But then don't sell against Intuitive directly. It's dumb, right? Don't go in and beat your chest and say we're going to be better than Intuitive. We're going to be bigger than Intuitive. There's lots of memes and myths, and the number one meme that's out there, and I hope the Intuitive people are on the line now, and they're all going to laugh and giggle at this, is going to be, customers just hate Intuitive. I mean, I heard that in 2010, okay, and the world is not that way. There wouldn't be that many sold out there if they loved them. Now, there are going to be pockets in every company where some local rep or local manager is just rubbed the wrong way against some kind of hospital administration. And this goes back to the old days when the idea was, well, we'll go and sell an Intuitive, and if this hospital doesn't buy it, we're going to tell them we're going to go across the road and sell it to some others. And when hospitals ask for discount, the answer is no, because we're the only game in town. And of course, some of that happened back in the early days. Why wouldn't it do, right? You can't control everybody in the company. But if you think that in 2025, everybody hates Intuitive, you are living in an absolute bubble. There will be pockets and there will be hospitals that are feeling they're not getting the best deal from them, that they'd love to have it cheaper. Wouldn't everyone want to have, a Mercedes at a really, really cheap price? Damn Mercedes for doing that. I don't know, right? It's just that's the way of the world. But don't hook your selling capacity just hoping and thinking that 90% of the world are hating intuitive and they just can't wait for you to smash their door down and bring the robot in. Now, you'll get told a lot of that because people want to come and kick your tires. And I've got experience of this, a lot of experience of it. They will want to come and kick your tires. They will want to come and say, I want to try your robot. And everyone will try your robot. And everyone will say, oh, yeah, we don't really get on with intuitive. Wait till the day that the contract gets signed. Intuitive is still outsigning everybody else together 10-1. There's a reason for that. They're still outsigning everybody else 10 contracts to 1. So if everybody hates them and nobody wants them, then surely with all that choice out there, 30 systems, why on earth would anybody buy an intuitive anymore? So you got to think about that for a second. Going and just selling directly against them as well. They do have 17 million procedures under their belt. The intuitive does work. The XI is a brilliant workhorse. The Da Vinci 5 is pretty spectacular. And if you've not tried any of these systems yet and you're a competitor, get on them at the next booth. You'll realize just how good they are, and they are excellent, and they are good. Don't just try and go sell against them. Instead, revert back to this unique selling proposition. Don't have people running away from them that you think. Instead, have people wanting to come and run towards you. What are you selling that offers them a really big incentive? Either scientific curiosity. They've never been able to get on with a robot. I'll give you an example that I've had many, many times in the past, which is there was a lot of surgeons who were urologists who never did the laparoscopic thing and therefore didn't have a true laparoscopic comparator. So all they ever knew really was being on the Da Vinci. So the Da Vinci to them, the whole paradigm of that for them, which is you put the ports in this more or less this location and you use it this way, and your instruments come in fairly parallel and your view is a certain way and your head's in the console. And all those things were things that a lot of urologists grew up with. So therefore didn't have such a direct comparator. Whereas as we've now moved to more of the gynecological field, and if you look at the last intuitive results, it was a lot of it was on general surgery. You're tapping into more laparoscopists who've done a lot of manual laparoscopy. And therefore, what they've done is, they've been used to for years putting the ports really where they want to put them for different reasons. Sometimes to avoid blood vessels, sometimes because it's the angle, or it's the size of the operator versus the size of the patients, and they want to put them in a certain area so they can actually physically reach. It helps where they put their assistant port because they want to set their assistant up that way. There's just things that are the philosophy of how they operate that they like, and they like to be in the room. And what I mean by that is they like to be understanding what the staff are doing, being able to see the situational awareness. I'll try and slow down the situational awareness. And they like to look at an open monitor, a monitor up on the screen. And they've been very used to that. And then when you take that and then you say, no, you've got to put your ports in a different place. No, you need to really do it this way. Instead of your instruments coming at this angle that you've had for 25 years, they're now coming at this angle. Those changes do matter to some people. There are a lot of people, and I've had a lot of surgeons over the years say, the intuitive is great, but it just feels like, every time I do that procedure, and this is especially those who are doing a mixed bag of laparoscopic manual versus robotic. If they've gone totally over robotic, you lose some of that. So you end up with some people saying, I still feel that the robot forces me to work one way. I don't like to be inside the hood. There, your unique selling proposition should be screaming out. So if you've got an open console, then that should be really important for a certain subset and subgroup of people. And there's lots of people around the world who would prefer an open console. They like to see the arms moving of the robot, and they like to stay in the room, as it's called. So there's one thing that you might want to find there. Modular arms, allows you to have a little bit more port freedom. It's really faffy to set them up. Learning to set up the modular arms is definitely it definitely takes more effort, but it allows you more freedom. You move the arms to the ports, not the ports that have to fit where the arms go. So there's benefits that you can get from your different systems that are out there. If you're more of a Moon Surgical, then you're going to be much more inclined to be thinking, okay, this is about maintaining the laparoscopic sensation workflow, but giving you the data that you would want, the assistance that you want. It's not about eliminating assistance, by the way. That's not what you get from Moon Surgical, but it's about repurposing assets within the operating room or the ASC or wherever, so that they can do a better job of doing what they do. If they're managing the back table, for example, and they're still trying to hold the scope and also reaching around to hold a retractor and trying to manage the back table, then what you've done is you've freed them up to actually concentrate on the piece that they want. All of these things, there's 35 different robots on here listening, then all of you should be starting to think to yourself, okay, how do I break down my offering and how do I create a unique selling proposition? And what comes out of that, you have to have alignment across the company. It can't be you say one thing and your colleague says the next and your LinkedIn posts say the next. Because I can tell you, as an observer of this industry, a lot of your posts and stuff on LinkedIn are all over the effing place. They are an absolute. I can't understand half of what your unique selling proposition is, and it's jumping all over the place. I would give strong advice, and I get to see. This is all I do all day, every day is look at this robotic stuff. I am confused about what many of your unique selling propositions even appear to be. So the whole messaging house from the top CEO all the way down to everybody in the company, you need to have that aligned unique selling proposition. And then from that, that's then how you can start selecting the right targets, right? So if I'm just a cheap robot, then it's every market in every hospital for every surgeon, right? That's it. It's just everybody needs to be targeted by my robot, and screw any kind of targeting because it's just cheap. And I'll just run in everywhere and say, hey, we're just cheap. Then you work out you're not. Or if you sell it at a certain cheap, your company crumbles because you don't make enough profit.